A verbatim report of this afternoon's hearing, and it will also be broadcast on the Chamber of Deputies web TV channel. I would also like to point out that some of our colleagues will be participating remotely, which is allowed under the House rules. We will have a hearing this afternoon in connection with the fact-finding inquiry on issues regarding the protection of Italy and European countries in the Indo-Pacific region. We will have with us Deputy Head of Mission David Burton. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for agreeing to come. We also have with Mr. Burton, Political Advisor Jacob Halpin. We have Second Secretary Lawrence Donaghy. We have Political Advisor Kaiser and Ms. Silvia Marinoni and Ms. Agnes. We have limited time, and I'm very happy to hand over to the Deputy Head of Mission. Thank you again for having come, sir. Thank you. To the President of the Committee, Paolo Formentini, and to all the members of the Committee, good morning, everyone. I am indeed grateful for the invitation that our Embassy has received to contribute to the work, to the inquiry being carried out by the Standing Committee on Foreign Policy in the Indo-Pacific region. This is within the framework of the fact-finding inquiry carried on by the Foreign Affairs and Community Affairs Committee with regard to issues connected with the protection of Italy and European countries in the Indo-Pacific region. It is a great privilege for me to be able to participate in this hearing today. I've only just recently taken up my position as Deputy Head of Mission of the British Embassy in the Paesi in Italy, and this is the very first time that I am visiting this beautiful Parliament, the Chamber of Deputies. I hope that indeed I will have the opportunity to get to meet most of you in the course of my term, and I do hope that my presence today proves to be useful for the inquiry being conducted by the committee. Our two countries are ever more united, and our joint effort in the past, in the present, and in the future will certainly strengthen these ties. The Speaker, Mr. Fontana, and Speaker Hoyle have just met. They just met in Verona, in fact, on the occasion of the G7 meeting of the speakers of the lower houses, and this confirms the very strong cooperation ongoing between our parliaments. There was a meeting held recently in Rome as well with our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the Prime Minister here in Italy, Giorgia Meloni, and this is also fostering and encouraging Italy and the United Kingdom to work side by side on the many shared priorities of our two countries. And of course, the Indo-Pacific region is amongst these priorities. And if you'll allow me, I would now prefer to continue in English.
My Scottish accent will be sufficiently clear. So I understand the committee has expressed a particular interest in the UK's Indo-Pacific strategy, which really started to take flight around 5 years ago. So I propose to concentrate my opening remarks on that. We, of course, have a new British government following our elections in July. So I will also say a few words about our new government's initial approach. I'll then be pleased to address any questions and, of course, to hear any insights that you may have for me. Allora, in March 2021, the UK government published its integrated review of security, defence, development and foreign policy. This was an attempt to set out in one place the UK's global affairs strategy. One key component was what we called the Indo-Pacific tilt, something that had already been underway for a couple of years, but now became even more prominent. The UK, of course, has a long and complicated history in the Indo-Pacific region, with strong connections with fellow Commonwealth countries and beyond. And the Indo-Pacific tilt sought to recognise that the global centre of geopolitical gravity was moving eastward, and that our own geopolitical approach and focus needed to further adapt. So we decided to establish a broader and more integrated presence in the Indo-Pacific, committed for the long term, with closer and deeper partnerships. We decided to focus on 3 key policy areas: economic opportunity, international security, and values. In terms of the first of those, economic opportunity, we recognized that the Indo-Pacific was the world's growth engine, home to half of the world's people, 40% of global GDP, some of the fastest growing economies, and at the forefront of innovation and green technology, vital to our own supply chains. We wanted to increase trade and inward investment, including through new trade agreements, dialogues and deeper partnerships in science, technology and data. In terms of the second priority area, security, we recognised that the region was at the centre of intensifying geopolitical competition, with multiple potential flashpoints, from unresolved territorial disputes to nuclear proliferation and miscalculation. Climate change, non-state threats, new security challenges, including in cyberspace. And much of the UK's trade with Asia depended on shipping through a range of Indo-Pacific choke points. Preserving freedom of navigation was therefore seen as essential to the UK's national interests, as well as to the wider region and the world. We decided to intensify cooperation with regional partners, including through our armed forces and through security capacity building. We deployed the UK Carrier Strike Group, that is our aircraft carrier, and offshore patrol vessels to the region. We strengthened Atlantic-Pacific links through 2 major defence and security partnerships in the form of AUKUS with the US and Australia, and of course the Global Combat Air Programme, GCAP, with our friends Italy and Japan. In terms of the third pillar, values, we again wanted to deepen and expand our partnerships to promote open societies and to uphold international rules and norms. These are needed for underpinning free trade, security and stability. We sought to improve our economic, health and energy security with practical steps, such as using new national security and investment legislation to prevent high-risk investment into the UK in critical infrastructure and sensitive technologies. And we sought to be an open and liberal trade partner, seeking new trade deals and doing business with reliability and integrity. In 2023, we concluded negotiations to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, to secure increased trade and investment opportunities. We also sought to deepen cooperation in science and technology. We intensified our wider engagement with multilateral organisations in the region. A dedicated UK ambassador to ASEAN was appointed in 2019, and in my ministry, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, a new Director General responsible for the Indo-Pacific was appointed in 2020. In 2021, we became ASEAN's first new dialogue partner in 25 years. We also looked for ways to work more closely with European partners on the Indo-Pacific, including through the G7 and NATO, and as partners in the G20. We remained committed to development in a region that was home to 1/3 of the world's poorest people, working on priorities such as girls' education and tackling climate change. And where countries could finance their own development, we moved gradually from offering grants to providing UK expertise and returnable capital. This included support to high-quality infrastructure as part of the G7's multi-billion partnership for infrastructure and investment, PGII. We also gave priority to rejuvenating bilateral relationships, opening new embassies and enlarging several existing ones. We concluded important new bilateral cooperation agreements, such as the UK-India roadmap in 2021 and the UK-Indonesia roadmap in 2022. Each of these charted out a plan to deepen cooperation across many of the key areas that I've mentioned already, such as security, trade, climate, science. A 2023 review and update of our global strategy concluded that our Indo-Pacific tilt was delivering the intended results. So now we have a new British government, as I mentioned, and the government has launched a strategic defence review to take a fresh look at the international security situation and the UK's role within it. This will report in 2025. The new government is also reviewing various other aspects of our international policy, as you would expect, but a few things are already clear, and I'll mention 4 of these in particular. First, the government's top priority is economic growth. Enhancing our security and contributing to global leadership on climate and development go hand in hand with this growth agenda. Second, and linked to the first, we're seeking a reset with Europe, a reset on our climate policy, and a reset with the Global South. All of these will affect our approach in the Indo-Pacific. Of particular relevance to Italy and the EU, the UK wants a new security pact with the European Union to strengthen cooperation on the threats we face. This would, of course, supplement our already excellent cooperation with Italy and others in NATO, the G7 and bilaterally. For example, we look forward to the Italian Navy and the Italian Air Force participating in UK aircraft carrier operations in 2025. Third, the UK government remains committed to deepening bilateral and multilateral cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. As my minister set out at the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Laos last month, we consider peace, security, prosperity and stability in the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific as indivisible. And fourth and finally, on managing the UK's relations with China, the British government will take a consistent and long-term strategic approach rooted in the UK's and global interests. We will cooperate where we can, compete where we need to, and challenge where we must. We cannot address global challenges unless we cooperate with China, including on global net zero, health, trade, and as fellow permanent members of the UN Security Council on security. We will improve the UK's capability to understand and respond to the challenges and opportunities China poses through an audit of our relationship and China's role as a bilateral and global actor. I look forward to working closely with Italian colleagues as we develop and implement our new international strategy. I wish you all well as you consider Italy's strategy for the Indo-Pacific, and I will be pleased to answer any questions that you may have. Of course, I and my team stand ready to assist the committee in any way we can in the future. Grazie mille.
Grazie mille, grazie anche per l'introduzione.
Thank you also for your introductory remarks in Italian, which we all appreciated. I'm sure we have some questions from our colleagues now. Let me just remind you of the fact that all the things you mentioned today, this excellent summary you shared with us, includes a number of aspects we've already covered during previous hearings. And today's goal for the committee, as we proceed towards a true Italian vision for the Indo-Pacific, because currently we look to Europe's vision. We have an implementing document of Europe's approach, but our goal is to have our own document, which is along the lines of what the UK, France, and Germany have already done. In the meantime, I'm sure a question is how we can increase our cooperation between the UK and Italy in the Indo-Pacific, since we have such excellent foundations. Mr. Cattaneo has a question. Well, first of all, let me begin by thanking you for joining us today, and congratulations for your excellent Italian. As President Formentini was mentioning, this specific meeting is on the topic of the Indo-Pacific, a topic we are developing an Italian position on, but obviously relations between countries that are strategically close to ours is essential. I also have the honor of chairing the UK-Italy Friendship Group, and even in that context, which is a more cross-cutting context, we have indicated this issue, thanks to President Formentini, within a working agenda that we have given ourselves and which we are already developing. And therefore, please feel free to count on this extra tool to foster our discussions. We can continue to intensify our relationships. And our party belongs to the European People's Party, and our position as a party also refers to a broader framework, the framework we work in. Currently, there's an important meeting taking place in Naples, and therefore we will continue to offer our support on this topic. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Simone Biti. I also wish to thank the British Embassy and the Deputy Head of Mission. I too wish to congratulate him for his Italian, which is certainly better than my English. It is true, as you were mentioning, sir, that there are a number of global challenges we face, and we will have to work together. The Western countries, from the economic, social, and political standpoint, we're seeing a situation which is quite different compared to what it used to be some 10 years ago. There are a number of competitors on the market, a number of competing countries on the market, and as far as trade is concerned, we have to counter them. As Western countries, therefore, I think that we have to stand more united than ever. We have to enhance our cooperation, because if we go it alone, we won't be able to deal with these challenges as we would if we are united. Therefore, we would have to have an increasingly united trade approach, hopefully increasingly strong, even in the Indo-Pacific, which, as you were saying, is a global region which is constantly on the rise, and it will be increasingly interesting in the future. Your former Prime Minister, Sunak, is of Indian origins. You have some 26 MPs who are of Indian origin, and some 15 whose families are from Pakistan, from Kashmir, or other countries in the region, meaning that you, of course, have a very strong political presence coming from that region of the world. Furthermore, your former colonies are certainly a very important and a very strategic base for you in that part of the world. And as my colleague was saying, the president of the Friendship Group, it will always be important to cooperate with your country, both as Italy and as the European Union, so that we can develop common strategies with which we can face the challenges which lie ahead. And as you yourself were mentioning, these challenges have to focus on the benefit and the prosperity of our peoples, and they have to benefit peace, of course. And as President Formentini was mentioning earlier, from your point of view, what are the guidelines, the strategies, the suggestions you have as a way of constantly increasing and constantly coordinating these strategies so that we can deal with the issues and challenges regarding the Indo-Pacific together, both as countries and as the European Union, of course. Thank you. The floor now goes to Mr. Boff. Good morning, everybody. I have a question regarding your country's recent experience on the topic of the global economy. We often refer to the global economy, which is characterized by giants such as China and India, giants in terms of their population and in terms of their economies. They are growing intensely. They have a major role on the world's economy. And recently, the UK experienced Brexit. It left the European Union, a group of several countries and several countries' approaches. What is your experience in this regard? Were there any negative outcomes due to Brexit? Or does the dynamic nature of your country, which is so present on the international scenario, has the UK managed to continue having a dialogue and a major role to play despite the dynamics linked to Brexit? Madam Gardini has the floor. Thank you. And I also wish to thank you. I also wish to congratulate you for your excellent Italian. I would love to speak English as you speak Italian. I was a member of the European Parliament for 11 years, and I was lucky enough to cooperate with the UK delegation for 6 years prior to Brexit. At the time, I was a member of the European People's Party, and even our British colleagues were members of the same party. Then in 2009, they founded the Conservatives and Reformists, and I myself am a member of that political group as well. It's almost a parallel story, the one we share. I also paid close attention to the events leading to Brexit, which I was very sorry about. I don't think any one of us was expecting Brexit to happen. What I wanted to ask is something you referred to in your speech, in your remarks. You mentioned how essential the role of China is from a number of different points of view. We've covered China in a number of different hearings in the past. But I wanted to ask you something about the global net zero program you referred to. Because if China isn't on board, all of those ideas will collapse, of course. We in Europe are making huge efforts, which of course have a major price to pay in economic terms. We are, of course, having a major impact on the automotive sector, just to mention one example. We have given our industries a very limited amount of time to update themselves. And in fact, if you think of China, they're very much ahead of us in the electric vehicle sector. It's almost as if we were repeating what has already happened with the photovoltaic sector. We have invested a lot of money, and much of that money ended up in China. We will be having the COP summit in Azerbaijan, in Baku, shortly. Do you expect any progress to be made? From your point of view, what is the situation? I attended all of the COP summits from Copenhagen to Paris, and I think that the Paris Accord is a very fragile one. It's based on individual countries' voluntary efforts. We in Europe have committed to reducing CO2, whereas China was looking to reach its peak in a few years' time. And it seems to me that the risk we face is that instead of being the leaders of change, we will end up being solitary front runners without the rest of the world following. So from your point of view, how would you assess the situation? Because as far as I know, it is a very complicated situation, and we run the risk of damaging ourselves unless we deal with the reality of things and unless we stop dreaming. Do you think there is a tangible possibility for China or even India? There are several parts of the world which have a path which is different from ours. So I'd like to hear your point of view on these critical, on these sensitive aspects pertaining to our economic growth, which we need so much. Thank you. The floor now goes to Mr. Di Giuseppe. And I wish to congratulate you for your very British accent, not so much a Scottish one. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said. Well, thank you, and I also wish to thank President Formentini for this very interesting hearing. I want to focus on the BRICS countries. It's something we don't talk about very often. The BRICS countries are no longer the founding members of BRICS. The initials of which form the acronym, of course. Now there's something broader. And the Indo-Pacific region, with a number of other additional important countries, is growing very much. The Indo-Pacific region is growing very much. And the BRICS area owns roughly 65% of raw materials. And as you were saying, as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned, they certainly stand at above 50% of the world's population, and they represent a major part of the world's growing economies. So BRICS is an issue. They're also discussing the topic of having a common currency. It's a very serious matter indeed. Also because the foundation of BRICS, a union which is growing increasingly, isn't similar to what we did in the European Union, where we focused on a monetary union followed by a union of principles. In fact, they are approaching their union with the opposite approach. Therefore, they have stronger roots than ours. And I was mentioning earlier, they own most of the world's raw materials. Therefore, what is your country's stance on this topic? Because I think this will be the topic in the years to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to give the floor to the Deputy Ambassador, because there were plenty of questions before I conclude.
Grazie mille, e grazie anche per I complimenti.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for your compliments.
Answer in English rather than in Italian. Please forgive me. Thank you for the questions. I was going to say that in relation to the UK Parliamentary Friendship Group, of course, we look forward to working closely together, including ahead of the Pontignano conference, a large event that we have coming up at the end of the year, to get different Italians and Brits together to talk about the big challenges we face. In terms of some of the other comments, someone mentioned the importance of the UK's heritage in South Asia and some of the prominent people that we have in our parliament and elsewhere who have South Asian heritage. And that's certainly something that we consider as a kind of superpower, that in the UK Parliament we have people with close links to many parts of the world, and particularly in Asia. So that's a strength we want to try to use. And on the point about working together, I Paesi occidentali, I mean, I agree, we need to be working together. We see the G7 as one key vehicle for that. Also, I mentioned the security partnership that we're hoping to develop with the European Union. That would be another useful vehicle. But we think it's also really important that we don't only cooperate among like-minded countries, but that we engage lots with countries that don't share our worldview. And I mentioned that my new government wants to review how we approach the Global South and wants us to engage even more. So we welcomed it when, for example, at the G7 summit hosted by Italy, that many leaders from outside of the West were invited, and we think it's really important that we continue to engage in that way and increase the dialogue with countries such as India, Brazil, and others. And if I can maybe link that to the question about the BRICS, I mean, from our point of view, countries are free to associate in whichever groups they like. I know that Russia doesn't share this view, but we think countries should be able to associate with whichever countries they like. And it's clear for countries like India or Brazil, they don't want to be part of, you know, only one group or one group of aligned countries. They see themselves as independent actors, and they are, who will deal with lots of different countries in different ways as suits their interests. And we need to just make sure that our engagement with those countries is respectful, and that with wider countries who are not aligned with us and who may be being courted by some other BRICS members, that we have offers of partnership which give a degree of reliability, a degree of clean, healthy growth, which maybe some other partners can't offer in the same way. In terms of Brexit, obviously sensitive issue in my country with divided views. But what's clear is, I think everyone is clear that the UK left the EU. We did not leave Europe. And over recent years, notwithstanding Brexit, we really have deepened our cooperation with lots of countries, and I would include Italy in that. The partnership agreement we signed last year, rejuvenated again by my Prime Minister's visit last week, shows that, and the GCAP programme, many other examples, show that we can do lots together. But now we want to do even more under this government, and we are very much extending our hand, and we hope that over the coming years we'll be able to forge an even closer relationship with European partners, including on foreign policy and security policy. In terms of climate change and China, so yes, I definitely recognise some of the issues that you touched on. We have some similar debates in our own country, and our new government is absolutely clear that we need to lead. That it's not guaranteed that everyone will follow, and you're right that we do. You know, it's vital that countries like China take the difficult steps necessary in order for us all to achieve what we need to. But our new government is absolutely crystal clear that we can't just wait or let everyone do their own thing. We need to lead, and we need to push, and you're right, ahead of COP, using all the experience from past COPs. That sounds like you have a lot more experience than I do of that. We need to really push to try to make sure that we can meet the targets that we need to, and China's key to that. And we need to work together to ensure they see the importance of that too. I think I've addressed all of the questions, or attempted to, but if I've missed something, please do let me know. Grazie ancora.
Grazie davvero,
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ambassador. Let me just quickly go over the main points that we've tried to focus on together in our fact-finding inquiry, this committee on the Indo-Pacific region of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Now, we've seen that there is a challenge before us, and this is not only in terms of the future of global trade, but also the future of our democracies. If we want to be tragic, but not overly tragic, I think it might even impact the very existence of our democracies. Today's hearing is especially important because England was the first country to realize, because of its historic presence and tradition, of what was happening in the Indo-Pacific. And I'm referring in particular to the tragic incident in Hong Kong and to the attempts that are being made by China to change a global order. Now, we have an example on this, and there's a lesson for all of us to take away. And I think the UK is the first to have had to learn this lesson, and that is that something has changed in China's approach to the world. Something has changed, and there is now the will to assertively expand its sphere of influence. And I'm referring in particular to Taiwan. We always say this here, that Taiwan must not fall in this conflict, because the next step would be for our democracies to fall and to see this change in our global order, which is based on the rule of law and on a rules-based system, and which is what the West has built up over time. So to avoid all of this, I can say that we've had many interesting initiatives. The US, the UK have cooperated in the area of international security, of course, and this is important also with regard to freedom of navigation. And in Europe, many have opened their eyes with the Suez Canal crisis. So this shows that we must have an Indo-Pacific Sea which is free and open. We must guarantee this. And we therefore need to change our approach, but we've got to do this together, all of us together. This is what the effort that the West and all democratic countries have to take. Even countries in the area, there are some states that are not fully fledged democracies, but they look at us because they look to us because they feel threatened, their trade and even their territorial waters. I mean, remember what's happened in the Philippines, which is a democratic country, but I'm referring in particular to Vietnam, actually, where there was a violation of territorial waters and their fisheries and their energy reserves. So we mustn't abandon any state in that area. We mustn't lose our hope, because often what seems to be missing in the West is a vision of the future. And maybe an idea of what kind of security architecture we need in that area. Because many steps are being made, but they're not all necessarily linked or coordinated. We have treaties and on defense between Australia and Japan as well, and also with other countries. And we have the Quad initiative, but I think that we need more. We need even more than that. So the next step is now necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to be NATO in the Indo-Pacific region, but in any case, we need some sort of organization that can ensure security, freedom of navigation, and freedom of trade, and upholding the values in that area. What else can I say? Italy wasn't significantly present in that area. We are now stepping up that presence. We began with our naval diplomacy initiative with the Morosini ship. That was our first step, and now we have the Cavour ship, and even the participation, Pitch Black in Australia, and the GCAP with England. That agreement is a model, and this model was attacked, was criticized by China itself, and they said that England, or the UK, Italy, and Japan are powers that threaten security for China. So let me close with this remark. Even here in the Parliament, it is important for us to keep working together in order to defend our democracies. Thank you very much, sir.
Grazie, onorevole Presidente.
Thank you, President, Chairman.
And I very much agree with the thrust of your closing remarks. And I think you're right, we shouldn't lose hope. Nobody knows how this century is going to play out. It's clear that this region is going to be key to that. but certainly with the UK and Italy working as close partners in the G7, with the EU and more broadly, I'm confident that we'll see a much better future than we would if we didn't work so closely together. So thank you again, and next time I will aim to speak in Italian and not only listen in Italian. Grazie ancora. Perfetto.
Grazie mille, Vice Ambasciatore, grazie a tutta.
Thank you again to the Deputy Head of Mission. Thank you to all the officials from the embassy, and our hearing is now.